Yeah. So we're trying to, educate other people, right? And that's what you've been up to. You've been moving and shaking
Absolutely.
since we last talked. Why?
Yeah. Why?
What's the why? Like, because you shifted a little bit, and
Yeah.
now we're executive health.
Health.
We've got
Yeah.
contribution to Forbes, all that kind of fun stuff. Do you keep like do you have like an end goal? Are you kind of ratcheting up, or are you kind of like reinventing yourself slightly, or what is
Yeah.
the
Well, I think when we did the initial interview, maybe 2, 3 years ago, I didn't really have like, I never really thought about, hey, what are you trying to create when, 20 years down the line? What does 55-year-old Julian look like? I was just trying to think about the moment.
Mhm.
Whereas now, the idea of actually creating an actual firm, creating an actual company, something that's bigger than myself, something that doesn't even require me to do everything. Sure, I will be the person that's usually doing a lot of the talking and everything, but as far as like, down the road having more of a team and stuff like that, those things never really occurred to me until I just went to a dinner and they were like, "What's the end goal with this?" I don't know. I was just like, I just want to make a good living and be able to eat, and that's kind of my priority.
Mhm.
And and those people really started to put that in my head of like, someday you'll have, hopefully a family and stuff, and you'll want to do things with friends and stuff a little more, and you might not have just this freedom to just do whatever you want
Yeah.
in terms of like whatever time. Because me, I was like, okay, I'll work at 1 a.m. if I want, or there's no structure in anything.
Yeah.
So really thinking about what's something that I can get on a run with. And then also at that time, my father's passing. And so then I have this time of reflection and pausing that a lot of us have with the pandemic
Yep.
of like, what are you going to do? What's my next move? And so I was like, okay, this is what it's going to be it. And um, things like McKinsey, a lot of those management consultings, I was like, what if somebody worked on creating something like that, but just specifically focused on health and wellness for business leaders and
Mhm.
still connecting that? Because a lot of times we have a lot of people that are leadership experts, business experts, but we're not really combining really forward thinking, high level health and longevity stuff
Yep.
integrated with that. And I was like, that's a message that really interests me to work on. And I don't know how I'm going to get there. We're still very early with that, but now I at least have something that's exciting. That's going to get me through the day because there's a lot of fantastic general health people out there that I'm even friends with, and that some of them as
Mhm.
well, and they have their lane, and
Yep.
I want my own lane, right? And and
Yep.
and
Yep.
so I was like, this is a lane I think I can feel that interests me because these are worlds that I'm interested in. I'm really interested in leadership, interested in different things in business, and then of course interested in health as well.
Nice. No, and it makes sense for them to be more generalist. Like you can have kind of that funnel and then, work their way down to your way. We still need the generalist to get people's attention, that top of
Yes.
funnel, if you
Hmm.
will, and then, focus. If I'm the executive, I want to go into
Hmm.
your niche. Other people can go other ways and then whatever satisfies them. But that makes total sense. Was there like an opening for you as far as that goes too, or were there just like, hey, I want to do this,
Yeah.
and then there's enough, room at the table kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Well, I think strategically, I saw that there's no one really out there there's not a place that's really the definitive quote unquote authority for business leaders.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people will say, okay, you'll see, you'll see a lot of times on LinkedIn or Twitter or anything, you'll say, hey, this person's in their bio says, I help busy professionals. And to me, I know what you're saying, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are busy professional, right?
Yep.
An accountant can be a busy professional. The executive is a professional. These are all
Yep.
professionals in professions, and they're busy.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, that's just trying to include everything. So
Yep.
for me, I'm like, okay, ambitious, forward-thinking business leaders, organizations, and then now, with the memberships and stuff we're doing, there's different tiers, right? There's
Yep.
emerging executives, there's C-suite executives. So there's different tiers, and they'll want different types of services. But there's not really a definitive go-to place for that, even when you look at different publications. And so I was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And
Right. So
so,
because you got your
yeah,
specific target and then also your specific,
yeah,
what you help with,
mhm,
whereas they could be like, we help professionals. Okay, we help them with what?
yeah,
Right.
hmm,
But that's
yeah,
neat. So then go ahead.
because even the name like executive health, it's executivehealth.io, but um, there's not really I'm already at the top of some of the domains in terms of like executive wellness, executive health
Mhm.
coach, and things like that because it's not really a strong keyword. It's not a huge niche, right? Even like if you look at, you can look at monthly searches, and
Yep.
it's not that high in there. So it's a very niche thing that's going there. So,
Nice.
but yeah, it's just exciting. And like I said, I think those people, a lot of times, those people are going to be a little more mission driven. And these are also including entrepreneurs as well that eventually build out a team as well. They're an executive then. Um, and it's just the type of people that interests me in terms of like, health to them needs to, it's going to have to be a necessity because they
Oh
got
yeah.
so many things going on. And so that's just different than getting the person from step one off the couch. That's just not even my personality. So that's why I knew then also that I don't match best with this person.
Yep.
I'm more the person who's more at the intermediate stage, like has a little basic understanding, and now they're ready for the next step.
Nice, nice. How is the Forbes thing going? Was that part of you, as like as far as like client
Yeah.
acquisition, kind of SEO, kind of a
Mhm.
strategic thing, or did
Yeah.
anyone come to you?
Well, no, I wanted to get back into writing, so I have a lot of friends in the writing world,
Mhm.
and they mentioned that I think Forbes will be a good fit for you and everything. And so you looked at some of the networks, and I thought about, I didn't want it to be a rehash of some of my older writings where it's a
Mhm.
little more general. So I was like, okay, I think the CEO network will be interesting, and it's not as popular in terms of daily articles as some of the other verticals there. And so I thought it was just once again another thing that maybe a year out from now I can really carve out a niche for and have it as a pretty good home and authority for there.
Nice.
So the writing's going good. It feels good to, I podcast now, I do videos,
Yep.
but writing is still my favorite thing to do. Writing is my favorite creative act because writing forces you to slow down.
Mhm.
And you can do your first draft and you're gonna just like word vomit everything out. But when you start doing the second and third iterations of those articles and any type of writing, it really forces you to slow down. Is this word necessary and stuff? And I really like that. Whereas video and interviewing is a little different. It's a little more free flowing
Yep.
and just conversational.
You've been doing a lot of that too. Was that something that you felt comfortable with at first, or did you need to like
No,
acquire the bravery after doing it?
no, no. I was not comfortable at all on camera and the video, the speaking, none of that. I took Toastmasters
Oh
years
yeah.
ago. Yeah,
Okay.
I took Toastmasters years ago, and that was kind of scary just to randomly go to some event like in the middle of the day. But it helped me with public speaking,
Okay.
and I'm probably going to go back and do some more because I actually like speaking now.
Yeah, yeah.
I like speaking, and it's something that I'm working on building up more to go speak at events and stuff like that.
You get more
But
comfortable and familiar with it too. Because yeah, you've
yeah,
been doing a lot of the content. It's just like a lot
mhm,
of like little shorties when you're out for a
yeah,
run type of thing. It's just like here's
yeah.
this little nugget. Like does a
Mhm.
lot of those come to you when you're running because of the subconscious and like your mind can flow, or do you actually plan out some of these little
Some
mini
some
contents?
sometimes I plan a topic out, but usually after a run is when I'm most out of my head, and
Okay.
I'm not going to overthink things. So
Nice.
um that's usually strategically why I do it, because then that's the moment where I'm least self-conscious of everything,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to create. Because a lot of times you think about it, you're like, I don't know, is this going to be valuable or anything, or should I say it this way or
Yeah.
that way? Whereas when you're running, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do one take, and then sometimes I'll take a picture or quickly do it right in the middle, and then get right back. So I give myself one take because I don't want to
Yeah.
stop my run that much. So
Nice.
that's strategically why I usually do it at those times. And plus, I think it's different because a lot of times I don't have a lot of pictures of me like doing like typical fitness influencer, fitness personality stuff,
Yeah.
right? I never really share my workouts or anything like that. So I was like, I guess I need to like let people remind that I wear something other than a button down or a blazer and a t-shirt that you
Yeah.
see me in videos in. And so this is actually out in my element, right?
You mean you don't
So
have your mini tripod and ring light at the gym? You know,
no, no, no,
just checking.
no. I mean, I thought about maybe in the future we're thinking about doing a few things in the gym and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just have to think, like, I don't want it to be just like a workout montage of like, hey, Julian strong.
Yeah.
This is him deadlifting. How is this applicable to me? That's the thing, right? I don't need that. I think about this as the person who is in a private plane, and they have their private plane,
Yeah.
and they're just like hey, I'm in a private plane, and then they're going to give you some tribe motivational thing. But really, it's a flex. I'm in a private plane.
Yep, yep, exactly.
I don't know how much value that's getting. So that's the thing I have to think about. Like, okay, if you see me Romanian deadlifting or something like that, how am I going to make this applicable to you? Right now, if
Yep,
so that's the thing that I always want to do. I don't need to do any humble brag at this
yep.
point.
And it's like, I mean, not that that would alienate anybody, but you're not, here for, like, do you want to, make sure you can bench 2 plates kind of a thing. Like
Yeah,
you've got, it's more, diverse clientele. And we're talking about executives in general fitness. It's not like a certain PR for lifting. So
no,
it wouldn't make as much sense for you to like,
yeah,
here, look at my gains.
yeah, no, no. I think lifting weights is very important. Muscle is probably our most valuable currency in longevity.
Mhm.
But as far as what number you need to hit, I don't know. Just be strong as possible at this
Yeah.
point, right? That's all that matters. Some people are worried about if I don't want to put on too much muscle. I'm like, don't worry. It's
Yeah,
not that
exactly.
it's not that easy to put on muscle. So
Nope.
that's the
Nope.
least of your worries. I love
Yep.
when I hear that.
Yeah, and that's now I think that was part of my uh issue in high school too, is like I associated all the lifting with just the football players kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And I'm sure if I, hung out with, a bunch of them now, we'd probably, hit it off. But it's like it's weird that you get into little niches and you just
Yeah.
got these little preconceived, notions. I think that's a lot of us too. And even with like getting into business and getting into sales too, that initially held me back because I perceived sales as smarmy car salesman kind of a thing. And you
It's
got to
so
get
tough.
past that. And that's that can stymie a lot of people. So
It's still tough. I tell you, it's still tough. Because I still do outreach and connect like that. The typical going out, meeting people on LinkedIn and all of that. And I think a lot of times when we think about sales, we think of the worst case scenario. And I think
mm,
this is almost even like a thing in the country. When you hear certain labels, you're going to think of the extreme person, right? Because that's who we hear. We hear the loudest person in the room. But really, sales is everything's in sales. Has somebody explained it to me? Like getting into a relationship, marriage, finding your spouse. That's a form of sales. You have to
yeah.
convince them
Uh-huh.
to some point, right? But you didn't come off strong, right? It was just a simple conversation, right? And then you just take it step by step. And that's kind of how in my head. So it's not like I'm going up to someone and saying, hey, I want you to get in shape and improve your energy and age backwards or anything like that, right?
Yep.
It's just, hey, I'm Julian. Great to meet you. Love to connect. Leave it at that, right? Because I'm a believer more in attracting this stuff to you,
Yep.
right? You're going to go out, you know, let them get on your radar, but then the other thing's going to work themselves out. If people have a need and they see that you're valuable or something, I think they're going to come along. But you still have to be proactive. But I just never really liked it, and I'm sure you get the messages on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And I know they're coming sometimes, and I'm like, okay, I'll connect anyway. Sure. It's good that you're trying to um make a living for yourself. So I understand it's fine. At least you're trying to be a productive citizen in the world. That's the way I looked at it. So I don't really
Yep.
mind. I don't really mind getting pitched and stuff like that. I know some people make posts about, oh, I'm so annoyed these pitches and stuff like that. I'm like, whatever, man. Look, people got to make a living. I'm sure at some point you were trying to pitch and make sales. So you got to remember how you were at step one or whatever you are in the process.
Yep.
But so speaking on that, I yeah, that kind of stuff just doesn't bother me. It's just not my style, but there's different styles of sales and everything. But for me, it's I'm in a relational business. And so I don't need high volume. I don't want high volume. It's particularly set up that way. So that's also in my head as well that um I'm just building relationships and let it come along. And also kind of tie into the very beginning of the conversation, I'm thinking about a 20, 25, 30 year run. So I'm not thinking about a 5 year exit in this, right? So that's why it's a little different.
Makes sense. So more long-term transactional, like you don't
Mhm.
want just that like little quick or here buy my service and then I don't care if you come back kind of like you want that LTV, that long-term value basically. And you're trying to cultivate. So I guess how would you describe your funnel then? It's not like I'm gonna just blast and DM and be that kind of smarmy type of thing. Is it see who people like respond to your content? Is it more like coming in or do you do some your own kind of engaging in Like what's the process for you?
I just have a goal of meeting. So meeting maybe 10 to 15. I probably meet about 10 to 15 people, or 10 to 15 touch points every day with just different people,
Mhm.
and just generally seem to be of a person of value. And I just kind of believe in, call it woo woo or whatnot, that things will come back around.
Yeah.
Now that's going to take longer. It's going to take longer, but the way the business is, and my inspirations in business, it's I love like stuff companies like Hermes, you know,
Mhm.
and I love like Four Seasons hotels and stuff like that. And so they were really all about service and creating a feeling and an experience. And also, a lot of fitness brands are a lot the same in terms of their marketing, their branding,
Mhm.
and those kind of things. And I couldn't compete with that. I don't have the personality for that. I do have a personality, I think, for a more, I would say, prestigious, not to sound pretentious, but
No, no, no. That's
yeah,
good.
but
Yeah.
to create that type of brand in my head. So even like when I made my website and everything, I was thinking about things like Hermes and those types of brands,
Yep.
and creating that, and creating an experience for people, and um like a concierge like service,
Mhm.
and stuff. So that's so for me, I was thinking, okay, how would they do that? Would they just mass market, mass brand, and no, they would. They would create their own distinct flavor. And then there was a great book I read. It was a little dry, but oh man, it's some type of luxury marketing book. I forgot the name of it, but they had the 24 anti-laws of luxury marketing, and I go by those now, uh, and that kind of just helped me. Now, it is frustrating when you are at the beginning, though, because you're like, okay, I need to get sales and everything, but I don't want to ruin my long-term branding. You know, this is like, at times I could sell supplements, right? A bunch of different supplements. I get approached a lot of times to like
Mhm.
sell supplements and all those things. And maybe it's a short-term gain right now, but you think about the long-term brand equity, and I'm diluting that.
Yeah.
Same thing with my writing. There's been people who reached out. They're like, "Hey, we'll pay you thousands of dollars to mention us and have a backlink in the article." And I'm like, "Oh man, $2,000, $3,000, and just for a mention." And what's the likelihood they're going to find out,
Yeah.
right? But you risk integrity, and you risk, once again, long-term brand equity. And so I really think about that. So even if it takes me a few extra years longer, but what's the type of brand and messaging and perception that's been built up in that?
Yeah.
Because
Uh,
yeah, so that's kind of the thing, is my North Star that guides me on a lot of decision making and a lot of the sales process. And I'm still learning on that, because things like on the organizational corporate side is new. So, not to give it, well, people won't do it anyway. So things like, I just ordered me some like note cards.
yeah.
So I'm going to send out handwritten letters and write those out. So I designed me note cards to
Nice.
handwritten letters. So I'm doing a lot of the unscalable things in a scalable world to help me
Hmm.
stand out. So I'm getting ready to probably order like a wax seal stamp. So when I
Nice.
send my mail out.
Yep.
So yeah, so little things like that. And that's going to head and create the story. So like I have aluminum and metal business cards, so little things like that.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's kind of like my, I guess you would say, marketing strategy, brand strategy. I'm going through a book now called Guerrilla Marketing, which is a great book. uh, really, really great book, and so many ideas. I usually blow through books, but it's almost like a textbook of learning about these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm in the middle of creating a really revamping my whole, I guess, marketing side. I think branding I'm pretty good at, but now I got to really learn marketing and sales.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you solidified the brand first, and then you got to get
Hmm.
it out there. And you hear that sometimes in startups too, like do things that don't scale.
Yeah.
And part of it comes down to like, starting with the authenticity, like who are
Hmm.
you, your product niche, and then expanding. So you're not wavering. It's like, ground yourself basically
Hmm.
first. And so yeah, I love the bespoke approach. And I actually did that when I had my landscaping company. I didn't
Uh-huh.
have the wax seal, but I
Yeah.
had a cool ink stamp, and I would put that on a lot of products. And I think,
Oh, I might use
uh,
that.
what's that?
I might use that. That's pretty good as well. That's still different. I might use that.
Yeah, and it's those. I forgot where I got it too. And it might have even been something as simple as an Etsy, but I had
Hmm.
the brand on there, and I made a lot of different products, and that was part. I was just casting too big of a, like too wide of a net, I think,
Hmm.
I didn't really, I think, solidify my brand as much, and I had to give it up because of a back injury. I just couldn't. I
Yeah.
was doing landscaping and I was doing products. I'd like to actually maybe sometimes get into their products on the side and maybe hand it off to my son or something. But uh, no, I just to echo your stamp thing. It was fun to like try a bunch of creative things and realize in hindsight like what probably could have stuck had I, been able to stay with it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and there was a good site, a good business planning site called Live Plan, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and so I used that recently, and I'm going through it again just to really refine my ideas and
yeah. I
everything.
used that initially before. There's been things like slide bean, a bunch of other different like pitch deck
Hmm.
prep things that have come out since, but I think I used life plan to
Hmm.
do some financial modeling and make a little pitch deck and stuff like that. So it's good to know they're still around.
Yeah, no, it's really impressive. Because I didn't even I'm not even at that part yet. I'm just like going through problem we solve,
Yeah,
our
definitely.
solutions, and just like, and the cool thing was like market segment and size. And at times I think we can kind of get this tunnel vision. We're like, oh man, I hope there's enough out there. And then when you really kind of look at the numbers, you're like, oh my goodness, there's ton out there.
Yeah.
Like if you just had point like a 1% of the market share, you're going to be so good.
Hmm.
And so that really helps you in this abundance mentality that you're thinking that, okay, this client doesn't work out, this consultation doesn't work out. There's literally thousands out there. And so that I needed to keep that because, at the beginning of any type of startup, you're like, oh man, I really want this client. I really want this contract, right? And if it doesn't go through, then you're thinking, oh man, damn, when is this going to happen? But when you really expand out and look at the big picture, like there's literally thousands of these people around, and so
Hmm.
it's not it's just an inevitable, it's a sense of inevitability when you look at it that way. And it's just like, okay, if I keep doing this, odds are it's going to work out. Now the sucky part is it typically takes longer than you want it to, and
Hmm.
it typically costs more than
Yep.
you think, because there's always little different things in business and stuff that you just don't anticipate, or you just forget at times that come up.
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me, I'm sure you noticed that Tony Robbins line that people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and
Hmm.
under what they can do in 10.
Yeah.
And I think we just get caught up in sometimes in if it's startups or something else, thinking, oh, why isn't this working yet? And you got to really look at, I don't know, things like, Mr. Beast or something like that, like seeing how long it took to even start getting a little bit of traction. And it makes sense too, like especially if you're doing something for that financial need, it might be tougher to sit it out for 3 7 years.
Hmm.
So we kind of want that instant gratification, but yeah, it's better to like just carve out your niche and then hold basically. And I
Yeah.
think some people overthink that too, and like let me get this business model lined up first, and like and you do your research, and sometimes it seems like there isn't a big enough niche or whatever. But if you're consistent in your own, I guess, authenticity in yourself, you might create a niche. So maybe that research could be even deceptive. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and you're going to change so much, as you mentioned, the whole, it's executive health now, but it was definitely not executive health down the line.
Hmm.
And this is like maybe the 10th iteration, and you wouldn't have got there without just doing stuff and creating and stuff, right? Essentially, I'm aiming to essentially kind of create my own niche, my own genre and topic right now that I'm doing, because I'm very much in the biohacking longevity world, but then I'm also in a very practical leadership business space as well, and you're just trying to combine those things, right?
Yeah, that's
So
good.
I think that I think that you're spot on, that have a semblance of an idea, but it's like the Jeff Bezos quote when he was talking about when he was creating Amazon, that he said that we are stubborn on the vision, but we're malleable on the details.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so that's a very important thing to keep in mind, is that have your North Star, have your vision that you want to get to, but just kind of be open to it, and expect that you're going to have so many different twists and turns. You're going to take 5 steps forward at times, and then you'll end up having to take 10 steps back. And it might seem like you lost everything and it was all for naught. But really, in that time, what you have gained is you've gained so much experience, and you're not different. To me, I look at those as test moments, and kind of like your old world testing you to see if you're really about this life, if you really want this thing. And that's kind of how I look at those moments. But because this entrepreneurship thing, and you know it as well when you're creating, it's 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 not even so much, it's a skill set, yes, but it's really a huge psychological game and battle.
Hmm.
That's where it's at, right? because you see this thing in your head that's this finished product at times. You're like, okay, I see it clear as day. But then there's absolutely no physical visual representation of that thing manifested yet in this 3D world, as they call it. And even you'll have people say, oh, you've been working on this thing that long, and then they'll say it, and they'll say, where's this thing at, or anything like that, right? You can have naysayers and stuff.
Yep.
But in your head, it just takes time to create. But a lot of times, the cool thing about entrepreneurs is we don't really need to see it first to believe it.
Yep.
Whereas most people in the everyday world, they need to see it before they believe it. They'll have faith when they can see it, but they're not just going to have faith without it, which doesn't make sense to me, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh yeah. No, and I think I always like psych myself out too, and we can psychoanalyze my own
Hmm.
background and everything too. But I think I would like preemptively see the naysayers
Yeah.
when there might not have been as many. And so I would I would have all these ideas, and then I would tell myself why it wouldn't work, and
Hmm.
then I'd have my excuse. And that's we all have our own backgrounds and traumas and
Yes.
whatnot too. And I think that was my biggest issue was uh combining the ideas, and I always had the creativity with
Hmm.
a bravery. And I think a lot of times, and I think we mentioned this a second ago too, the bravery comes after
Hmm.
doing it. And I didn't really realize that, and to some extent until recently. So I had always make excuses. I think a lot of people do that too. We kind of fear that unknown or
I'm
the
guilty.
repercussions. Yeah, and it's tougher too if you have a family too. So that's when people
Hmm.
that's what I want to talk to with with Rise Above It and Rise and Bar None, and everything that we're doing is that the massive men lead lives of quiet desperation. Like I want
Hmm.
to talk to the people out there who still have ideas, because there's value in pursuing it, at the very least, to say that you tried it too.
Yeah.
And I think it's I want to help change the culture as
Yeah.
far as trying things. Yeah, because I think I think we mentioned this on a little early chat before, the idea of the Schrodinger's cat. Like
Hmm.
within us is both a success and a failure. So you already
Hmm.
have the failure within you. You might as well open the box and see what's there. Like, oh, it's a failure. Okay, well, at least I opened the box.
Yeah. Well, I thought about this, way back when I was doing the whole medical school thing, and to leave that, and in that moment, you probably look like a complete idiot, or and they're like, what are you thinking, right? Because, but I also think about, I've ran into a lot of people that are older, and they have the worst poison ever, in my opinion, and that's regret.
Mhm.
That's the absolute worst thing, is someone to be 70, 80 years old, and they're saying all these things I'm so regretful for, or they use the word, I wish I did this, I should have did that, I could
Yep.
have did this, but I didn't do it. Whether it's somebody that held them back, whether they were afraid to go against their family, all this stuff, right? So for me, I got to the point where even now that I'm either going to be under a bridge or I'm going to be in a penthouse. And that's just a proverbial saying that, like, I'm just going to go for it all.
Mhm.
And even if you fall short on it, I can at least look back and say, I tried, I
Yep.
really tried, and it just didn't work out. And that's fine. But to never try, that's the thing. Cause then you always have that thing of like, what if I really just went after it? And what could have happened? Just what could have happened? What would be different and everything, right?
Mhm.
And it's just a feeling that's hard to explain, but you feel it. Because we all have regrets. We all have things like, I wish I could have did something. So for me, one of the things is, I wish I would have put a little more into my athletic career.
Yep.
You know, I wish I just did a few things differently. I wish I would have done a few things differently in my undergrad, all those things, and you just feel that. And so I think with people with families, now I can't speak on, from experience yet, but I think with families, a lot of times we look at it as, oh man, I can't do this because of the family. I think it's even more of an opportunity. That's even extra fuel. Because I hear a
Mhm.
lot of times about guys that say, once I got married, man, I got better, much better at business. Because then you realize, okay, the mission grows then, because there's a family behind you.
Yep.
You see your kids now. You're like, okay, I really want my kids to be proud of me. In different things. I really want to show them a good example. So I actually think it's a better opportunity. Now, maybe you can't go as fast because there's other financial responsibilities that you're tied up for. But
Mhm.
in terms of being able to be consistent and stick with it, I think you have an advantage over people who don't have any of those attachments and things going with them, because the stakes are not usually as high for those people as it is with people with family. So I think it's just a little reversing the perspective.
I think that's helped me too, more recently. I think early on it was the kids, and that was like oh, I don't have time, XYZ.
Mhm.
Like you can create these excuses. But now that they're getting a little older, 12, almost 9 and 6, what I'm doing is in a way, I hope modeling for them that they can see that I'm going for something. Not that, I want to be successful like dad.
Mhm.
I'm not yet, but can they kind of copy me trying things too?
Yeah.
So at the very least, I want to set an example, and then maybe they'll go after their own dreams, kind of a thing. Because
Yeah, it's
I didn't have that. I saw that somewhat in my family, but my parents, we were kind of, they coasted along, and things were good for a lot of people in the 80s and 90s, and I didn't have that modeling or like goal mindset basically.
Mhm.
So I kind of had to slowly develop that and like shake off my own little weights, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the
I
very least, I want to show them that they can do things,
yeah,
whatever it is.
I think my parents, without even saying it, I think they demonstrated it through action. Because like my parents, for where they came from, neither of them went to college or anything. And, to end up in a good house that they were able to build, blue collar jobs, and then good financial decisions as well in terms of saving and everything. And then you realize that people that had like multiple degrees made 5 times more than them. And when they got older and you saw where they ended up, like
Uh-huh.
financial wise and investment wise, you're like, wait a minute, they did all this on this type of salary and this person. And so that taught, that teaches you things like the power of saving, even if it's just a little, and
Hmm.
just little habits like that, consistency, working hard. And so those are the things that really can be passed down to kids. And I think about this myself, that even if, you strike it big, become this multi-millionaire or even billionaire, because there'll be trillionaires. So billionaire will be maybe like the half, will not be as, oh, wow, because they'll be trillionaires. You think about those things, but you're thinking about more generational habits. I
Yep.
know we say generational wealth, generational health, but what about these generational habits? What are the habits that we can instill that can give us the highest probability to be successful, to live, to be a good citizen, to be a good human from generation to generation on? That's the things that's important. So
Mhm.
even if you don't exactly hit that North Star with your business, the habits that you had to put in, the character traits that you had to establish to even give yourself a chance, that's the gold, in my opinion, that kids really need.
That's what I really like about executive health, and what you're doing. I'm sure you thought of this too, but by going after CEOs and founders and kind of C-suite, uh, there's that chance that it not only trickles down to their family, but also to the employees, right? Like
Bingo.
if we can create, I mean, obviously their own, health is wealth, mind body connection. Could that come down to like business practices
Mhm.
and that kind of thing? And I really like how that could trickle down in ways that we might not even see.
Yeah. So for me, I think the first thing in society to help society, first and foremost, small businesses, capitalism, we need that in society,
Hmm.
right? But then I also think we need good citizenry, good leadership, good habits, and stuff like that. The first thing that starts is your well-being, your health. Sure, you can lead now, but how much better of a leader are you going to be when you're really leading yourself to its highest capability? And so that's going to pass on. So for me and the company, the three big pillars, when you're maximizing your health, it's going to be, of course, organization, company, but family, and then also community. Those are the three big things. And that's a way of really improving society without me having to get political and say political statements, right?
Yep,
Because
yep.
a lot of this, nothing wrong with the politics, but a lot of this comes down to personal development, personal excellence in itself, our personal habits, right? And if we can have each person really take care of their habits, then it's going to be a cascade like effect to improve society as a whole. And then a lot of times we look at the leaders, and as the leaders go, a lot of times as the company goes, as the organization goes, the family goes, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, this is a way for me to almost, instead of saying I want to help 1 million, 1 billion people, this is more like the hockey assist way, that if I can help 20 impactful leaders this year,
Hmm.
those guys are going to be better. And how many people are they working with and impacting? And then in a hockey assist way, I've contributed to helping that much more people, right?
Yep.
Without me having to be in the background,
I guess
or
that's
without me having to say I'm helping 1 million people this year. Yeah. So this
yeah.
is kind of how I see it.
Nice, nice, nice. Like that was like back to fitness and you're talking. It's not like for me, I grew up in that kind of milieu where like it seemed fitness was selfish. But
Mhm.
then what you're working on, and I think this is the growing niche, thankfully, is that it's not, because there are all those ripple effects too. Like if
Mhm.
I'm more fit, my body, my mind is better, and I can be a better leader. I can do X, Y, Z, and so that's good. That I think there's a little bit of a paradigm shift. I think if you would agree that there's more of awakening
Absolutely.
with fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the pandemic, for as crazy and all sorts of things as the pandemic was,
Mhm.
it gave people time to almost hit the reset button and really pause, right? Unfortunately, people got to see if they really liked their spouse,
Mhm.
because they couldn't just run away from them, and they were there with them a lot more. So there's people who really fell in love even more, and then there's people who unfortunately fell out of love, or they really
Yep.
realized, and so we saw a spike in that a little bit. But then there's also people that really thought about their health, and they're like, wow, I'm a little afraid of this virus and everything, because I don't know if I can withstand it. And they're
Mhm.
like, okay, and so this is an opportunity to get in shape. This is an
Yep.
opportunity to really take care of your health and everything. And then there's a lot of other different things. And health is like resiliency. And so that's what's in my head. And so it's not even so much of the aesthetics. Yes, we want that. I prayed and went to sleep so many nights just seeing this in my head of actually having some broad shoulders. So I am very appreciative of that now. But I thought about more about the resiliency to be able to handle the various demands of life,
Mhm.
and to also not be just another person along the lines of my family who has health issues or anything, right? With all my power that I can do.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of people got to finally think about that, and they got to think about what it is I want in life. How do I want to feel, and everything, because a lot of times you get in this rhythm before the pandemic of go to work, do your daily habits. Humans are creatures of habits.
Yep.
So even if for business owners, it's do X number of calls a day, go eat lunch, maybe do a little activity, go home, see the family for an hour. Whereas everybody else during this period, we had to change. And so it was a huge, huge, huge shift. I mean, I think now this is like at least in the States with everything going on, it's a shift as well. That's going on with our health as well. And not just physical, but even more like an emotional, like a mental, even a spiritual health, I think.
Yep.
So I definitely think the next few years in terms of health, it's changed. And I know alcohol is a huge one.
Mhm.
I've never seen so many people. It's almost like, dare I say, trendy or hip
Yep.
to
Oh yeah.
say I don't do alcohol now. I don't
Uh-huh.
drink. Right.
Yeah, I'm worried that
I'm
some,
like,
like the younger generations, might be substituting it with edibles and stuff like that, but that's worth a different,
yeah,
research and discussion. But it does seem like shifting away and towards some of these newer brands that have, the ashwagandha and the nootropics and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff. Like that seems like something that you could almost brag about necessarily.
yeah,
I'm not drinking, Michelob like my dad anymore. I'm drinking this
yeah,
Olipop. Like what the heck is that? It's a cool. I think there's tons of space for invention and in that field too. So I'm excited for what comes out.
yeah. Yeah. I've never seen. Yeah, I just don't think alcohol is as popular now.
Yep.
With definitely Gen Z on down, and then maybe half and half with millennials, I would say.
Yep.
So
Yeah. And
it's
we
it's
had a
it's
couple
it's a
guests
very
who were,
fascinating.
oh, sorry. Yeah. No, we had a couple guests who were talking like they're focusing on that niche, Sarah Rusbatch and then Ken Middleton, who are talking on that like middle age, but like really 30 to 50, which,
Mhm.
growing up, middle age always sounded like it was 50s and 60s, but really think about it. Come on. It's 30s to 50s, but where you still have a better opportunity to change too,
Mhm.
where things aren't as solidified. You're still somewhat malleable.
Mhm.
And then that's a good opportunity too, because you might have, impressionable kids too. So I think there's opportunity for not just Gen Z, but kind of the older millennial and Xers too, to kind of be that change and have it affect other people as well. It's not just a selfish thing. And that was one of the, I guess, back to 2020 and stuff. That was a good opportunity in a sense where you could kind of break out of habits. Because I think there's
Mhm.
that, not to quote another transcendentalist, but there's that foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. And we
Mhm.
get stuck. I mean, it's routines and we have to, there's 9 to 5, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes the routine is a good thing, but to kind of have a little pause and not just, start a sourdough type of thing, but what else can we do? And I'm thinking about other things because I don't have to just, wake up and go to work. Like it's and that what stinks and obviously we need that kind of thing to, pay for a house and food and everything, but we fall into that schedule trap, and there's not always time for other things. So I think the good thing is that it kind of gave us time to at least think of other things,
Yeah, I
opportunities.
mean, that's a hard thing even now to break out of the habit. Because even with myself, you get to doing certain habits and you get comfortable with them and
Mhm.
everything. You know they're not working. You know you need to do other things. Kind of going back to like when I mentioned like my cards and stuff like that. You know that's a better idea, but you just still don't do it because you're so comfortable doing this other thing.
Mhm.
And you just need to snap yourself out of it. And it's the same thing with health. A lot of people are like, I can't, health is your wealth. We hear this a lot, right? I even see this on the internet, right? You see it from people who don't necessarily look like they really practice that. And a lot of times with health, we unfortunately we need that moment. So for me, I got it early. So that's why like it's just been ingrained in me since like 1920. I got it up close and personal with my dad, with my aunt, with my grandmother. I volunteered at a children's burn unit and to get a lot of hours, before medical school and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got to see all this. So that's why like for me, it's been top of mind. But for a lot of people, you're guarded away from this. So you haven't really been around just a lot of just sick people. So
Mhm.
you think, oh man, I see this happening, but I don't think it's going to happen to me. Whereas for me, I think I understand the fragility of life a lot, so I don't take it for granted.
Mhm.
And so that's why, like a lot of times, we need to go to the doctor, and he says, "Hey, you're pre-diabetic," or we need that. I can't get in my favorite suit anymore, or she's like, I don't like the way I feel in this dress. We need that snap in our head,
Yeah.
So even for me, it's like I'm reviewing different things in business and I'm reviewing the vision I had at the beginning of the year, the business plan where I want to be 18 months from now, 24 months from now. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, ooh, there's kind of a gap in this area. Okay, I got to do something. I need to
Mhm.
see, right? We always need to see, we need to see those kind of things. So
Yeah.
it's so, that's why like I think the pandemic was beneficial for a lot of people. I know a lot of people, we lost a lot of people, a lot of division happened and things like that. But it was a wake up call for
Yeah.
all of us.
Those wake up calls, those snaps are oftentimes instantaneous, which can be, I think they're still good, but a lot of times, you've got behaviors that you've have evolved over time. If it's eating or drinking or what have you, that you've been doing for 10, 15 years, all of a sudden there's a wake up. You can't just undo immediately 10, 15 years.
No.
And so you gotta like, what do you do when you're talking to a client without giving away like your secret
Mhm.
sauce or anything, as far as like breaking habits? Are
Yeah.
there any kind of, I guess it'd be different for different niches too.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
trying one new thing and getting outside of your schedule, or like how do you talk to people as far as like I'm 15 years into poor health, and
mhm.
then when you finally realize that I want to be healthy again, but it's like, oh no, it might take a little while to
Yeah.
fix yourself.
Well, I will say, first, there's really no secret. I don't think there's really no secret sauce. I think humans are humans a lot of times, and I think we give too much to titles. I
Mhm.
understand that. Oh, this person's an entrepreneur. He's a three-time entrepreneur. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, I I don't really. I watch myself and not don't give people pedestals ever. You know. They put their pants on the same we do. They have stomach issues like we all do, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and so you think about identity, and that goes back to it. And sometimes business people understand business lingo. It's usually why I speak it. Different things, KPIs, all this
hmm
stuff. And so 10, 15 years of poor health. And they're like, man, I just want to get on this. I need like a 90-day program to change it all around. And I'm like, okay. And so I just get to asking questions. And I'm like, okay, so when did you start your business? And he'll tell me, right? Um, did you have any setbacks or everything? He's like, yeah, I had a lot. And so when did you make your first million, 5 million? And they'll tell me it's been a couple of years. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it took a couple of years to get to that point, right? And to really hit your stride, right? He's like, yeah. It's like interesting. And so want to lose 30 pounds in 90 days. I'm not saying it's possible.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible. There's peptides, all sorts of things now, right? And so, but I'm thinking about the identity. So he's like, okay, how long did it take you to gain this weight? What'd you weigh 5 years ago? Names the weight. And then gets it down. And then he's like, okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah. So it took years to get this. So why am I going to think that I'm going to instantaneously go and get it off?
Hmm.
We have GLP-1 agonists, all that stuff now, right? Those are tools. And I'm okay with using them. But the thing I'm worried about is that has the identity changed?
Yep.
Are you the type of person, if you're 220 and you want to be 195, 200, are you in your head, do you have the identity of a person who weighs that right now? So that's the thing that must change.
Mm.
So even if you have those tools to use to accelerate the process, when that comes off, are you going to be able to maintain it?
Yep.
Because if you haven't changed that identity, you will go back and revert back to the old person. It's the same thing with the lottery winners. It's the same mistake I did when I was doing good personal training in person, and I had one account. So you can imagine what happened. I had no idea about taxes, anything like that. I just know that I was getting paid X amount, and it was all in one account, and it felt good. And then tax time came.
Yep. It's
Yeah,
recidivism basically.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like
yeah,
it's addiction or whatever it is
yeah.
that you're talking about. Like,
So
yeah, you can fix that, but then you just go right back. And I don't know the stats. I'm sure you do as far as people who lose weight and how many
yeah,
percentage gain it back, and that totally makes sense. It's not like it's impossible. It's just you're still the same you.
mhm.
You're momentarily lighter or you're momentarily clean, but if you're counting the days since you've had McDonald's or whatever drink, that you're still thinking about that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
to go back to that, so it's the same thing in like business right now. So if you want to be a multi-million dollar company right now, and you got $0 in the bank, I can go ahead and start displaying the habits and the character traits of that person that has millions of dollars in the bank account, even if I don't have it right now. Because for anything to even have a remote chance of actually manifesting it and becoming an actual reality in this physical world, I have to first form it mentally in my head first. Just like the iPhone was not a thing, it started in someone's head first,
Hmm.
and then it became a reality. We're using Zoom. I have a microphone here. Someone thought of that, and then it became that. So it's the
Yep.
same thing here. I need to form this identity. I need to set a standard of what's my non-negotiables. Who is this new person? You're literally creating a person, and then you're walking in this person, acting like this person already before it's even showed up yet. And
Yep.
to me, that is what actual faith is. That's my definition of faith. That's my, not to get too religious and
Yeah.
philosophical, but that's what prayer is to me, is that you believe in it, have faith in it so much that you're going to go ahead and start embodying and acting like this person before there's any signs and clues of it. That's,
Yep.
to me, what that means. And so that's kind of how I would go about telling someone that. And that's kind of how I program myself right now, is that there's a huge gap physically of where I am now to where I want to be. But I can go ahead and start being that in my head now, and carrying myself like that, acting like that myself, right? So for me, that's one of the reasons why, like, even when I thought about like how am I going to appear on interviews? How am I going to look? How am I going to dress? How am I going to carry myself? How am I going to talk? How am I going to communicate? All those things. I'm going to do it from day one. I'm not going to wait to get, quote unquote, this thing, because if
Mhm.
you do that, you're never going to get it, because I have to become this thing before I can even get it. And so it's not the sexiest of answer, because we just want,
Yep.
give me the tool, give me the peptide, give me the Ozempic, right? Give me that.
Yep.
But if you don't have habits, it's going to actually be more of a detriment to you
Yep.
in the long run.
And that comes into that was that the Pareto distribution too. It's like if
Mhm.
you wanted to have like a wealth distribution, it would go back to the way it was after X amount of years, and that's not because of unfairness necessarily. It's the people who are you know
Yeah.
used to being I guess a money accumulator. They'll go back to that. Or the people who have the X Y other habits, it will kind of equalize. And the same thing probably with weight loss and everything else. If you're not fixing yourself, it's going to go back to that normalcy.
Yeah.
Can we
I saw
touch about?
I
Okay.
saw a good habit real quick. I saw a cool thing about that real quick is during the pandemic they sent out different checks and stuff like that, right?
Hmm.
And really the wealthiest people in the world just got wealthier.
Yep.
Whereas the people that had it, they had it in the moment, but it's not like all of them spend it on Bitcoin or started investing in real estate or anything, right? They usually
Yep.
probably just consumed it, right?
Hmm.
And bought goods. Who's the people that own these things and stuff like that? Some of the wealthiest people, right?
Yep.
So you really just help them. So that's a prime example of where mindset matters in that, or you're going to revert back to kind of who you are, right? And I think it was Ed Milet or something like that. He made a really good analogy. He said something to like your temperature. You have to change the thermostat on your temperature, right?
Hmm.
And if you don't change your habits and change the people around and everything, you're going to revert back to that temperature that you're normal at. So even if you have a few good months, let's say you run at 75 degrees and you're about at 81, 82 degrees. But if you don't have people around you that keeps you at that higher frequency, at that higher temperature, you're going to eventually revert back to what you are more familiar with.
Hmm. Yeah, the whole like you're the sum of the five people around you type of thing too.
Yeah, you can even look at it that way.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So like, uh, so and I just want to make sure I'm valuable, like valuing your time. Do you still talk about the idea of epigenetics too, or is that
Yeah,
more
yeah,
from before?
yeah, it's all of it.
Okay.
That's
Can
I
you
mean,
touch on that? I guess I'll maybe my layperson summary for the listener, and then you can tell me what I'm wrong. It seems like it's more like the I guess the plasticity, like it's not like we're necessary. Well, maybe we are changing our genetics. Like if you're changing habits and diet, and the idea of cells replicating themselves at whatever rate, you are changing yourself, and you might not necessarily, in 2 months get rid of a chronic disease or something like that, but we are our bodies are inherently reinventing themselves and just like making new cells. And if you combine that with new habits and other things too, you can make a new self basically, right?
mhm.
I mean, let's why how am I right or wrong?
Yeah, I mean that's a core part of the. Probably don't talk about it enough, but yeah, that's a core part of the services and stuff that we do, right? The genetic testing. There's different cancer screenings. There's different biological age stuff now, taste tests as well, and actually there's organ specific now. So each we can get a biological age on each organ system now.
Mm,
So it's actually advanced even more now. Um, I guess I don't mention it as much just because it's not as actionable because
yeah.
it does require people to go purchase something to go find someone that can order the test for you and everything. Whereas usually my thing on social is I want to be able to at least give you something actionable and take away. But
Yeah.
that's nonetheless what our genes, our genetic code doesn't change. So my genes, what I was born with, that is my genes right now. But it's really the things above that gene, and that's where you hear the word epi from because
Mhm.
it's above the gene. That's really the things that are malleable. That's really the things that can change. That's the part of the genes that can express or not express in
Mm.
itself,
Yep.
and that's the part that we actually have control over. So things like the way we eat, the foods we eat, our exercise habits, smoking, alcohol, um, our relationships, it's a big one. How we handle stress, our vocation, our community, our sense of purpose. All those things is dynamically interacting with us and it's communicating with us on a cellular level and telling our genes what to do, to turn off, to express and not express. So in a layman's term, it's you have a hardwire and then you have the software, and the software is going to determine ultimately how the hardware performs. And this is the same thing here. The genetics is the hardware. And that epigenetic component, the foods we eat and all that stuff I talked about, that's the information that's being communicated with us, and that's going to tell our genes and stuff how to express and how to and go about itself. So the good thing about that meaning is that we actually have more control over our health destiny than we let on. Because I mean, I heard it as a kid. Most likely, you're going to be diabetic. You're going to have these issues because your dad, and your
Mhm.
grandfather, and all those people had it. And we probably hear this with people in other elements as well. And to a certain extent, that's true. It's a probability, right? Because on my genetic, I did my genetic test years ago. I have a high probability for insulin issues, for those type of things, but it's not my destiny. It's my
Yep.
probability. Is if I don't do the right lifestyle habits, this is one of the things that's most likely going to show up first for me. Whereas maybe for the next family, it's going to be more cognitive issues. For the next family, it's going to be more autoimmune and arthritis and things like that. All this is to me is telling me, hey, if you go off the path, this is the first thing that's on there. So for me, this gives me more of my personal power now to know
Nice.
that my health is really more in my hand now. And so that's kind of the future of health and medicine as well now, is that we can be much more precise in terms of how we eat. So it's not necessarily, I need to be in a keto camp, I need to be in a carnivore camp. It's more like, what's my unique biology telling me? What's my lab reports telling me? And
Mm.
then that's how we're going to go about everything now.
No, I
So,
love it. I think on the surface, if someone had just heard epigenetics, it sounds esoteric. But when you break it down, you're basically saying like you are not your blueprint necessarily. You can change your destiny. And I
mhm,
think and maybe it's a morose, analogy, but the idea of the sociopaths and serial killers have that same gene. It's just whether or not they were abused as childhood that actually activates it. And so you can still have these certain genes and predisposition for X or Y, but well, you can change that basically is what you're saying. So don't I think people they worry about that too. Like that's our upbringing, or I'm supposed to be this.
mhm,
You're not supposed to be anything.
yeah,
Who do you want to be basically? And obviously to give you your props as much as possible, but like you're enabling people to change the destiny, which is no small service.
yeah. And and this is a it's an interesting one analogy that I'm probably going to bring up, but it's definitely true because I knew people who used to do it. So a lot of street hustlers, different drug dealers, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, those skills, those guys are phenomenal sellers. Those guys make phenomenal entrepreneurs and
Uh-huh.
CEOs.
Yeah.
I kid you not, because I know some of them who turned their life around. And one decision, one change in perspective.
Yep.
You know, I can take. You mean I can take the same skill set and thrive in corporate America,
Yep.
or build a thriving business? Absolutely. One little shift to know that this thing I saw is not my destiny. I can take some of the good things with that because my genetics gave me some great athleticism just naturally. I always said I have sports car genes that maybe it's not a $300,000 car that you don't have to do no maintenance. I have to do a lot of maintenance work,
Hmm.
but it's going to perform really well. So
Yep.
our genes are actually a blessing. And it's hard to believe at times because it's how we were able to survive and be here. Now, maybe we're not in the same environment where our genes were millennia ago, and that's why we have some of the struggles. And also,
Yep.
we have different foods that our bodies just are not used to. But if we know our information, we know our blueprint and everything, it's easier to attack it. It's easier to set ourselves up for success now because we know now that, okay, the reason why this wasn't working for me is because it's not for my unique biology as it is for this other person now. So I think the more data, the better, because now we know how to act on it. And that's the big thing in the future of health as well, is that we're going to be exposed and have so much data that we'll have. The question is, how are you going to interpret that and how are you going to take action on that? Much like in business, there's so many information stuff, right? There's so many how to be a millionaire videos, how to get into real estate, all this stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, I actually need to take action on it.
Hmm. That's funny. We just my last episode with Ken Middleton, we were talking about the sports car analogy, and I
Uh-huh.
I hadn't heard it as much until now. It's one of those Tony Robbins, red car. Now I'm kind of
Hmm.
attracting this analogy, which I love, and I think that helps with a lot of people too. Like you might be born with Maserati genes, but you got to give it the premium fuel,
Yeah.
or you've got a 1992 Ford Econoline van. Nothing wrong with that, but if you fix it up right, you might have a sleeper car. You might be able to really outperform more than you would think or more than you were born with. So, I think not having that Maserati doesn't mean that you can't
Hmm.
become it. Or if you do have it, I mean, you got to maintain it. So no, I love it. It's a simple analogy, but I think a lot of people can visualize it and
Yeah.
see it.
We're in the golden age of, there's never been a better time to be alive. And I know people maybe not. It's divisive, sure, whatever, but I'm sure things were divisive and hectic back then. We
Hmm.
just didn't have Twitter and we just didn't have all these social platforms. So I'm sure there was chaos in
Yep.
Iowa. You just didn't know about it.
Hmm. Right. Right.
So I think that, this is the best time for health and so many things. So I've never been more bullish on the potential that we can do with our health, right? But, it all starts with, once again, with mindset, as we said, with entrepreneurship and business, it's a psychological thing. The same thing with health is you have to sell yourself the dream. You have to sell
Mhm.
yourself the possibility first and foremost, that it is actually possible to do that. You have to sell yourself on why it's important. Why must I take care of my health? Who needs me at my best? Find whatever motivates you. Even if you need an enemy, find an enemy that you got to stick it to for a little bit. Whatever you got to do. I had
Mhm.
enemies when I first started off, and
Yep.
then it morphed. I don't need that now for that particular thing, but at the very beginning, I was going after people. I had to prove a point and stuff. So you got to use whatever you got so you can be at your best, so have no shame in whatever motivates you to get you started. And then over time, believe me, it's going to evolve and change and everything.
Love it, love it, love it. To wrap up, what's one little not easy, but little wake up thing that someone could do? Would it be, all right, I'm in these bad habits. I know I need to start X or Y, but everybody's different. Is it just like meditation? Like, because sometimes it's, to really chip away at something that started to solidify, it's going to take a while. Would you say get into the subconscious too? Like, how do you be that change if your self perception isn't there? Would it be something slow like a meditation? Give yourself,
Yeah.
a 60
Uh,
dayer of doing positive affirmations? Like,
something,
how can
something,
I slowly, you know what
mhm.
I mean?
Yeah, something even easier. Just start with an audit. Just start with a health audit. A lot of times, whether you're in corporate now, whether you're an entrepreneur, you have audited yourself, reviewed your business. You have a vision with your business. You have principles and values, most likely. If I ask you the same thing with your health, odds are you do not have a vision for your health. You do not have values and principles and standards with your health. You do not have an anti vision, right? Sometimes that works as well. So that's something easy to do. It's free. All it requires is time and focus to really clear out. And don't even think about, suspend whatever things, ignore reality right now. I don't care if you are 50 pounds overweight right now. I don't care. I want you to think about, how do I want to feel, move, operate? What do I want my health to be like? What am I doing? What activities do I enjoy 30, 40, 50 years from now? And get to that place and really get clear on that. The same way that you got clear on your finances, your wealth, your North Star, do the same exact thing with your health. So you have somewhere to go. And then you can start chipping away. What's the first thing I need to do? Well, maybe I need a checkup. Like, what's my labs like? When's the last time I did some lab report? A really good lab report to see where things are. Really get that stuff out of the way. Even if you don't want to look at it, you're like, look, I already know I'm overweight. Look, trust me, get some numbers. And now you have now you have where you were right now at this date. And
Mhm.
you can tell yourself, I'm never going to be as bad. I'm never going to be in this position wherever I am in right now. It's only going to go up from here and just start from there. But the meditation and stuff is good, but it's still a tactic. I need you to really work on identity and figuring out, what does optimal health mean to me? Because optimal health is going to be different for me than it is going to be for you. You want to do different habits. I love to, I do like ultras and play basketball when I'm getting ready to start back, and lift weights and all this stuff. Maybe you're not into that. Maybe you just want to golf and ski, right? But even if you want to do those things, what do you need to do to golf and ski at a high level if you're 41 right now and you want to do it at 91? What can you do to put yourself in the best position for that? And now you're going to train and have like your workout cycle and everything that's created and that has those type of things in mind as well. And really let yourself go there as well. I know this is maybe a little longer of an answer, but really let yourself go there and think about, I don't like to use fear that much, but sometimes I think fear is necessary, right? Think about, if you're really not taking care of yourself and you got a daughter, right? And do you really want some random guy walking your daughter down the aisle? You know, if not to say things can happen, but there's a lot in your control, right?
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Do you really want to let your daughter walk down the aisle with just some random person because you didn't take the time for your health, but you use the excuse, well, I can't do it because of my family and everything? No, the reason you must work out even more is because of your family now. I understand. I hear it. I heard it different times of people that, oh man, it's so hard to take care of myself because kids and family now. It's like, no, it has to be even more of a necessity now.
Yep.
Even if you got to cut other things out, cut a sports game out, cut Netflix out, cut whatever you got to do, cut browsing on the internet,
Uh-huh.
or combine those things and work out while it's on or something. But it's even more of a necessity when you got more people with you now. So, but yeah, let yourself go to different places that like, if I keep doing what I'm doing, and that's the awesome thing about a lot of the health assessments and tests now. These things are not even indicative. Like I just got done with a consultation like Wednesday or so, and I told him this is not something that's immediate, right? But if you keep going down this way, this is your likely reality, right? And that pretty girl that you always talk about, that your daughter, that means the world to you. You're not gonna be walking her down the aisle, right?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
And sometimes you gotta go there. I don't like to go there. I don't like to use fear tactics, but sometimes you gotta go there.
It could be that wake up call for some.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes you need that wake up call, right? For me, I'm more self motivated in terms of like, I really have to be the best that I can be. Because at the end of the day, whenever my time is, I want to say that I gave it my all. That's what really motivates me right now. But for some people, they'll go to the ends of earth for other people more so they even with themselves. So it's good to bring those people into the picture as well to help them stay motivated and do things.
Love it. I got so two more little things. When you're talking about, kids and excuses,
Hmm.
one thing that I'll relate to other people for, like that 75 hard challenge, for
Hmm.
instance, it was tougher at first before I even started it. But there's the idea of, two workouts a day, and it felt selfish. But then I used the evening workout, before the ankle, as an opportunity to do something with the kids.
Hmm.
And so I'm involving them. So we have a 4 mile loop by our house, and can I
Awesome.
go for a bike ride, or can my daughter bike, and then I'll run next to her. And now we're doing this together, and then we're getting fitness with them. So I think, what could seem like an excuse for some people wanting to start, you can actually flip it into an opportunity, and that really helped me. And then, so I'm excited to get back into it, because doing it that way, it wasn't hard at all.
No.
uh, and that's, I want to get those habits for them. And then one more thing, just I'm a fan of analogy, maybe some listeners are too, but you're talking about basically a roadmap. It seems like I can have this destination in mind, but you got to figure out what road you're on, because if you think it's going to be on this highway, you're still on the dirt road actually. So you got to get off that first, uh, in order to get to that destination. So you need to have that self assessment of where I am right now. So yeah, that makes absolute sense if you think about it that way. And again, back to cars.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I
But
mean,
no, I love it.
I like cars. I like cars. I mean, I have, I have certain goals in mind for cars and vehicles and stuff. So
Yeah,
cars in like places are always top of mind. And land, different stuff like that.
yeah,
That's
experiences. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's all over my YouTube feed and everything. So you got to always sell yourself the dream, bite the dream, even if you can't like, if you got a huge place. One of the things you can do is like for me, here's a thing that kept me motivated. I wanted to at least be able to wear a large t-shirt when I first started. So I
Uh-huh.
bought a large shirt at close to the beginning of the process. That's about 20 pounds out
Yeah.
before I could fit in it. And
Oh,
so I
to fill
tried
it out. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
to fill it out, but I was like, okay, I'm going to be wearing a large t-shirt. Right. And so, even things like now in like business, right. I drive by the Ferrari dealership. And I'm like, oh man, I you just drive by nice places with open space and land. And you're like, man, I want that land. And, you can see like they had like some horses and stuff, right? And you
Yeah.
just let yourself wander and dream. Like, what if? It's like, oh man, that's so exciting, right? And so it kind of helps you get through some of the drudgery that you don't like to do. Like, I don't like reaching out and talking to people every day. If it was up, I love just creating and being left
Mhm.
alone. But the mission requires that I get more social and that I start talking to more people, right?
Yep.
And so I think about all the cool farm, the cool places to build, cars, and all sorts of things, right? And you even start seeing, for me, a future wife and kids, and you're like, and you're telling them stories of how'd you get here? How'd this happen and everything? You're like, wow, you came from this place and you got here. It's like, yeah, wow, how you do that and those things, right? And
Yep.
you can do that with your kids, with people with their kids now. Is like you're literally creating a story and a legacy that can be shared and explained to it. And to me, that's super exciting to me. It's like really exciting.
Yeah. And for me, I think that I've helped that has helped me or it's I my thinking of those kind of things has changed where it's like before it was like status and possessive like possessions and it seemed like excess, but
Hmm.
really if you rethink it, it's kind of the reward for the journey and it helps you
Hmm.
visualize too. It's like here's the process and what I've done and here's just I don't know the cherry on the top if you will. So I think a lot of people just like back to this, this smarmy salesman kind of thing. I see this and like, oh, they're flaunting it. Like, you don't necessarily know what's going on in their head. Maybe that was
Yeah.
a goal that they had, 8 years ago, like me with the Bentley Continental. It's I don't know. I'm an Anglophile. I like that it's luxury and speed. I mean, maybe I'll just lease it, but
Yeah.
it's just something that I kind of visualize and that's just my own thing. Um, so people can have their own different goals and if it's just travel, yeah, we want to travel to Scotland, we've got our own different things that I think you need to see it to bring it in, you need to
Yeah.
be that change, and so yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like my computer screen right now in the background, like the wallpaper, it's like a collage of different types of experiences and things on there, and then it's a couple of different it's a couple of different phrases that I always keep in top of my mind and things like that. So, it's you always got to keep yourself connected because there's so many distractions out there, and it's so easy to get discouraged. It's so easy to get discouraged with um and to get into comparison or to not think that I'm too late or all sorts of mental chatter. So you got to stay connected to the vision and why you're even doing this and why is it even important in the first place. You got to pretty much do that every day.
Yep. No, I love it. It's never too late. The whole like kernel standards didn't start till 62 or
Yeah.
whatever. It's never too late to start with your business idea or even your health.
Hmm.
The back to the tree analogy, or not back to, but the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. Second best time is now. I think you can, that transcends into fitness and health and all that fun stuff. So
Absolutely.
where can we find you? So executivehealth.io, we're
Yeah.
on Forbes. You just posted one a couple days ago. Where else can we find what Julian's up to?
Yeah, so you mentioned those two places, and then also LinkedIn is a great place as well. And so I'm pretty responsive and active there. So those are three best spots. And then you'll see links to like the YouTube channel and stuff as well, but not to throw too much at everyone. Those three spots that we initially mentioned are the best places.
Nice, nice. Yeah, because we're all on different platforms too. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
I'm not on LinkedIn, or maybe I could do YouTube. And then your book,
yeah.
Body Architect, is still on Amazon. You ever thought of another book down the road, maybe or something?
Yeah, I have two book ideas
Oh,
already,
okay,
like
nice.
in the head. Yeah, and
All
so we're
right,
just, things have to be in sequence and everything. But yeah, I've been sitting on two ideas or two separate books. I already have them in my head. Everything is just that
nice.
now it's not the right time to really dedicate to sitting and writing a book. But yeah, I've been eagerly waiting because that book is maybe 8, maybe 7, 6 years old
I
now.
think it came out in
Yeah,
16. Yep. Uh-huh.
yeah. So I'm looking at that. I'm like, oh man, I don't look it's useful for day one people, right? But
Yep.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, I've come far in terms of
Mm-hmm.
just writing. I look at my writing, I see so many writing mistakes, and I'm like, I don't write like that anymore.
Yep.
And stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the beautiful thing of like when you just get started and you look back, you're like, wow, you're like, wow, look how far I come. And
Yeah. See,
that's the same thing with your health, which is why like even if you don't want to go get any lab work right now or document like what you weigh and your waist circumference and your body fat percentage, I promise you, it's you will love it because you're documenting the process. I regret not having more data on just the initial journey of like my fitness stuff and even some of my writing and stuff. I really wish I had more of it
mm-hmm.
just to almost remind yourself of like the Tony Robbins thing. If you widen it out a little bit, you can make some substantial progress, but you just can't get caught up in the moment expecting it to instantly change overnight.
Yep. I love it. You're looking back on things that you've evolved and not wishing you would have done something. So
Yeah.
I love it. So what hopefully we can all do that, and that's what you're trying to do. I appreciate you jumping on. I'm sure we could have, we can keep, talking
Yeah.
on different tangents, and so that's what we want to inspire other people. So can we take these conversations elsewhere? Can we, level up your tribe, the 5 people around you? So that's what we're hoping for. So I appreciate you're out there doing the good work. It's going to be a huge ripple effect, changing destinies. No small task, but you're out there and setting good examples, and we appreciate you. So thanks for joining us on Rise Above It. So
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man. Love the conversation. And like you said, we probably could have kept talking for hours.
absolutely, we'll keep it short and sweet, let people get about their day and get after their goals. So thank you, Julian, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
I see you.